Hey, welcome. So thanks for joining me today. We are talking geography for early elementary. So preschool, kindergarten, first grade, um, some gentle introduction to vocabulary, to the idea of mapping, to the idea of that the world is bigger, that the world is a globe versus a map, um, just mapping in general and geographical terms. So I have a few resources. I have 5 picture book type books for early learners that I thought I would share with you, show you the inside a little bit, and just see if they're of interest to you as you kind of introduce the subject gently to your children without needing to do like a formal curriculum or anything in depth, especially at the early time. So I'm going to flip through these. I'm going to kind of just share a little bit about what they are and you can see for yourself. So the first one I have is called Me on the Map. And basically it starts with a little girl. And this is me in my room. So it shows her room and a map of her room. And it shows the difference. And then it shows her house and a map of her house. And then her street and a map of her street. And it basically just keeps going further and further out to her town, her state within the country within the world. And then if you have the world and you open it up like a piece of paper, this would be the map. And this would be, where her country is. And then it slowly goes back down to her state, her city, her street, her house, and her own room. So just a really basic, gentle introduction to mapping and kind of the way maps represent real things for a child and a way they can understand. This one is a similar style book, As the Crow Flies, a first book of maps. And basically this is where does it begin? On the first page. It introduces it with animals. So the eagle soars, and this is what the eagle sees. And this is where he stands on this tall tree. And this is the eagle's map of where he went and what he sees. And it kind of keeps going from there. So the rabbit goes around a farmhouse, past a shed, and into the garden, right? So it shows the rabbit going around the farmhouse, past the shed, and into the garden. So this is his map. And it does this with various animal, the crow through the city, and it kind of introduces different areas and aspect as the horse walks through the town, and it shows a map of the street. And then as the gull glides in, it shows a map of the harbor. And it just does that kind of through the book. So just, again, showing that maps represent a real thing and kind of showing how you would put on a map one of these scenarios. One more very similar to these is Mapping Penny's World. And this is a little girl who goes to school. She's learning about maps. Her teacher says, you can make a map of anything. So she decides to map things in her world, right? So she talks about she's going to measure her room and she's going to include everything in it. And so this is a map of her bedroom, right? So it talks through her bedroom and then it shows the map. And then it talks about her dog and how he buries bones in the backyard. And she's going to make a map of where he hides his bones. And then just similarly, it goes through, the route her cat or her other dog, I guess, takes to get home or to come visit. And then the hikes they take, their trails, and just kind of, again, real life scenarios and how you would show those on a map. Favorite places, so those kind of things. So those 3 are all really similar of just like, this is real life, this is how you would portray it. This next one is a little bit different. This is From A to Z, a picture glossary. So as you get, the title pretty much says what it is, but it introduces geographical terms and things we talk about, landforms, water, in different ways. And it gives you a picture. It's alphabetical because it's from A to Z. So archipelagos, and it gives you a picture and a little explanation of what that is. Badlands, bays, the beach, canyons, cape. And so just alphabetically, it goes through some of this terminology that is introduced in geography in just a picture book form with very small explanations and a picture to understand it. And it just really goes through the alphabet of geographical terms. So again, this one's less about mapping and more about just introducing some of the words and some of the landforms that we're familiar with. And then in the back, it has an index of everything that's in there. So I like this just to kind of start the conversation. And kids at that age are so curious. You could take this book and talk about one of these landforms and then go find a encyclopedia, one of those big picture DK encyclopedias or one of those, and look at things that are related to that landform or volcanoes or whatever, and your kids could have a ball exploring these terms that way, kind of picking 1 or 2 and going through. Okay, and then this one is Maps and Globes, and this one has an age on it. I don't think these other ones did. This says 7 to 10, so this is for a maybe slightly older, but you could read it with a younger child. and they get what they get. But this starts with kind of the history of maps and how they began, and maps in older cultures, some of the ancient cultures, and then they started charting when they were doing sailing, but how their maps were really incomplete. And then, the age of exploration begins, and they didn't know what was out there, and they discovered that the Earth was round instead of flat, and so they had to create globes for maps as well as just flat that helped them understand, the true size and form of the Earth and how to map it. And it kind of just goes then talking about how maps are flat, globes are round, how they change the distortion, so kind of understanding how maps are a little different than globes. And then it talks about the languages of maps, northwest, east, south, the equator, probably longitude and latitude, how they use, what are these called? It's going to tell me how you use a gauge to represent distance, to put a large continent on a little piece of paper, measuring the Earth with a piece of string, where on the Earth exactly am I, so the lines of latitude and longitude, so there's that. And then talking about the mountains and the layers and some Earth formations, how deep are the oceans, physical maps of places, and political maps, peoples and countries. So the difference between a physical map and a political map. And then it has some keys here for interpreting some maps, and some different examples of different types of maps. So it shows Arizona with several different types of map, and then, go and explore. So this one does go into a little bit more detail, but you could totally read this and just get them familiar with some of the conversations surrounding it, not expecting them to get it all. So those are 5 books that have to do with geography, geographical terms, mapping, all that I'm going to be using with my 4 and 5-year-old, just to introduce them to it in a very easy way, in a way that's not like, I need something right now that's not adding another piece of curriculum to the plate. So I think this does it, where we have a short day or a day that's relaxed, or the kids want me to read to them, I can pull one of these out and do it, versus having to have we got to do our lesson today. So I think this is a much more relaxed way of doing it. Anyhow, hopefully that's helpful. Hope you enjoyed looking inside those. If you've used these, or if you have a early elementary geography resource that you would recommend along this style, please comment below, because I would love to know those. You pick up what you have, but I love to hear what other people have used and like. So share those with me as well.